This episode of RealAg Radio is brought to you by high-performing new Carbine insecticide from FMC. Carbine insecticide delivers fast, selective, and extended control of aphids in alfalfa and pulses, leaving beneficials like lady beetles to help in the fight. Ask your retailer today.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Thursday edition of the show. Hey, thanks so much for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a part of your workday. And a big shout out, as always, to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast. Continue to tell your friends, your family, your farming neighbors, and let them know about this show as the audience continues to grow in both Canada and the U.S., and it is great to be with you here on Rural Radio 147. Okay, we've got a lot to cover here today because it is the Farmer Rapid Fire. This is where we go from one side of the country to the other, and we find out how farmers are making out in their fields, their barns, out in the ranch, whatever they're doing. We want to hear from them and get their perspective. You hear my perspective all the time. You hear from our guests. Well, here we're going to hear from farmers and ranchers, and I love the Thursday show. We got a great lineup for you here today. We're going to hear from Jenn Doelman. She's in Renfrew, Ontario. We've got Mike Groot, who is out in Huron County, Ontario. Randy Court is in Plumas, Manitoba, and we've got Jim Wickett coming out of Rosetown, Saskatchewan. Quite a vast geography, lots of different concerns. Some probably worried to be too wet, some worried to be too dry, and a little bit in between. If you have any feedback on today's program, we would love to hear from you. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can, of course, find us across all the different social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, as well as TikTok. Or the other option is to call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. When we get the farmers here on the show, I got a question of the week. You know, and last week, Lindsay Smith guest hosted and did a fantastic job here in the Farm Rapid Fire, and she got back into the routine of having a question of the week. So I've made an effort and planned ahead for once, and we have a question of the week this week. This week, we're going to ask our farmers about, so everybody on their farm has a selection of crops they can grow. Like, you know, if you're in southwestern Ontario, you know you can grow corn, you know you can grow soybeans, and you probably have some wheat. If you are in Rosetown, like Jim Wickett, you know, you've got some pulses, you got some wheat, you know, you might have canola, you could have some mustard, you know, you got options, right? There's certain crops for certain areas. Now, there's also the crops that you try to grow, you really should grow, but you just can't help yourself in the name of a vast crop rotation, okay? But then there are the crops that you have no chance of growing based on your geography, right? Like if you are in Oklahoma, can you grow spring canola? I don't think so. Too hot, right? If you are in Saskatchewan, you can't grow cotton or rice, right? That's what I'm talking about here. We got crops that are just silly to discuss because we just can't, we don't have the conditions. But it's like, I wish I could. I just wish. Two come to mind for me, okay, in the nature of fun. Two that come to mind are, one, cotton, because I don't know if there's anything cooler than a cotton harvester. I go to farm shows and I see those cotton harvesters, and they are massive. They are very, very neat, and I just think it's such a neat, just totally different than what I'm used to growing up. Okay, so cotton's one of them because I would love to run the cotton harvester. Two is grape vineyard, right? Grow grapevines. Not because I'm as interested in the agronomics of the grapevine, it's the output that I'm kind of interested in from that perspective. So we'll hear what the farmers have to say when we get them that question. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to start out east. We're going to roll west like we always do. You're listening to RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM.
Maximize your yield potential by improving your nutrient use efficiency with WolfTrack's DDP micronutrients from Koch Agronomic Services. WolfTrack's micronutrients allow crops to consistently access the nutrients they need when they need them. And with even coat technology, WolfTrack's products thoroughly coat each and every granule, giving you an even distribution and placing micronutrients in close proximity to growing roots. Better nutrition, better crops, better farming. Get started today at wolftraxmicros.ca. That's wolftraxmicros.ca.
How's your seed quality? What should you treat with? What about herbicide carryover and environmental concerns? Spring is here, and you've got a lot of things to think about in regards to your pulse crop. The Pulse School on Real Agriculture has information and advice for all these questions and more to help you navigate this season. Brought to you by BASF. Pulse School episodes are available at pulseschool.com, realagriculture.com, or as a podcast on your favorite streaming service. Download the latest episode today.
Looking for robust, reliable grain storage solutions? AGI leads the industry in quality, innovation, and offerings to protect your investment. Designed for exceptional cleanout, superior strength, and unbeatable versatility, you can rest easy knowing your grain is secure in an AGI West Steel bin. With 100 years of manufacturing experience, AGI West Steel bins will exceed your expectations for reliable storage. AGI West Steel. Long-term safe storage. Find AGI at your local dealer.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio for the Farmer Rapid Fire. This segment's sponsored by Koch Agronomic Services, creators of Anvil, a nitrogen stabilizer. Defend against volatilization, boost efficiency, accomplish more. Learn more about Anvil and other nutrient management, nutrient protection, and seed enhancement solutions at kochagronomicservices.ca. Joining us to start the Farmer Rapid Fire, we're out in Renfrew, Ontario. We're talking to Jenn Doelman. Jenn, welcome back to the program.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Is it warming up in your parts here this week?
I'm wearing shorts. We had an ice storm a week ago, and today I'm wearing shorts. So yes, the snow is, you can almost see it melting. It's great.
Were you without power at all?
We were lucky. So I live on a weird stretch of Ontario that actually gets our power from Quebec. So we are usually very good, but I had neighbors just on a different line that were either just a few hours up until some that just finally got power yesterday. It's been a struggle for some people.
Yeah, for sure. Are you all ready for spring?
We're getting there. Like your colleague, Lindsay Smith, I also teach at Algonquin College, so I'm frantically trying to get papers marked for the end of the semester in the agribusiness program, and guys are tearing apart the drill still. We have a new shop that finally went up last fall, but we were waiting all winter for electricians. So it's a frantic mad dash right now, but no, we're doing well.
So what got you into teaching at Algonquin College?
Just good luck, I guess. I have a friend who had been teaching there, and she got headhunted by Wilson Consulting, which was great. And she's like, hey, they need an agronomist to teach cropping systems. And I'd heard Lindsay talking about how much she enjoyed it. And I had been on their program advisory committee, so I was familiar with it. And yeah, I tried it on, and at first I was just doing it virtually because I'm such a drive from the campus. But this semester I'm in person, and I'm loving it.
Well, that's good. That's good. So what for you, what's the biggest reward that you get at? Like when you think about what fills your bucket about that experience, what is it?
So it's two things. Three. One, I'm a lifelong learner, so this gives me an excuse to make sure I'm staying current. Two, I used to work in agribusiness, so I was really trying to help coach the farmers with their agronomic practices. But for a lot of people, they already have their mind made up, right? So in some ways, these are fresh fish. So I can kind of hopefully mold them with good agronomic practices, and it's a business program that does agriculture. So I'm really loving that I can tie in the profitability as part of sustainability. And then the last thing is there's a lot of new to agriculture people. So this is really good for me to learn how to speak English instead of farmer and get outside my comfort zone. And, within the industry, we think we're inclusive, but we're not always. So this is really good to help me kind of check my biases and make sure that I'm teaching agriculture in a way that's approachable, because I think a lot of our future workforce won't be farm kids, right?
Yeah, great points. Great points. Okay, so as you get ready for spring, what are some of the things you still gotta get ready?
I have to get back to my bees. I have them in great spots where nobody's going to bother them, but I can't actually get to them. So I do need to get a plan together on how I'm going to get in there. And then because we went from so much snow to mud, we don't have any of our frost seeding done. So I'm hopefully lining up a neighbor who has invested in a drone to do some cover crop seeding for me this weekend.
Oh, very cool. A custom drone seeder.
Yeah, again, I'm not so sure about the licensing, so I know he's got everything sent off, but you know how bureaucracy is. But yeah, I'm excited about that. We had them come in and do a demonstration last fall with, I think it was DJI drones, sorry. Yeah. So she came last fall and did one with a soil and crop event we were hosting into the standing corn, because we're in a short heat unit area and we just don't have a lot of time for cover crops to develop. So for me, if I wait till the corn is off, there's just it's already winter time. So we tried them in August, going in broadcasting rye into the corn, just as a lot of the time with the rye and the corn, the shadows take it out, right? Like there's too much competition. But if you go in just as the leaves are starting to die back, in theory, it's ideal growing weather for the cover crop. So it went in September and I'm like, yeah, this is a joke. I went out in October, yeah, this is a joke. And then when I'm combining, I'm like, holy smokes, there's rye here. So I'm kind of keen to see where it goes. In the demonstration last fall, and then again this coming weather, we're on heavy clay, so we can't get into the field, but a drone, that doesn't stop it. So I'm excited. Yeah,
Pete was talking about this on Monday's show. So this is the second time this week we've heard about seeding with drones. It's very, very futuristic, all of a sudden becoming reality. It's very, very interesting. And like you said, based on soil type, hard to get out there early in the season. So this allows you to get that, it's not ideal, but it's functional, right?
Yeah, right. And again, like in a perfect world, the sprayer we have now will be the last one I buy, because eventually we'll have either, a swarm system or something like that. I'm probably naive in thinking this. I'm so struggled. We spend so much time and energy managing compaction when prevention's the best, right? So it would be nice if we can find ways to get onto our fields without necessarily being on our field.
It sounds like I didn't know this about you, but it sounds like you like to embrace kind of new things in technology. Have you always been this way?
I'm an early adopter, but I'm not an innovator. And I have to make sure I'm clear about that, because when I try to keep up in innovation spaces, I'm quickly left behind. But I'm definitely still on the bleeding edge when I can afford it. That's why it's great having friends who try stuff out, right? Like having a friend with a horse or a puppy, and then you give them back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like a grandparent. It's like, yep, that was good. Yeah. Tired. Take it back. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't know how to run a drone, but I know how to tell a person where to send it.
Ah, well, just as important for sure. So, hey, you mentioned the bees. How is all that going? Because we haven't talked about that for a while.
Yeah, well, I don't have a lot to say since I put them away for the winter, because that is the one problem with the way I have my bee system set up, is that they are perfectly safe and nowhere near where I can see them. So honestly, from a mental health standpoint, it's great, because it's just like fall wheat or alfalfa, right? Like they're alive or they're not. There's not much you can do in January to help them along. So, they're safe and sound within the fence, hopefully keeping the bears out until I can physically get to them. And then I'm going to go full tilt. But the pollen's coming in now with this extreme weather. So I'm probably going to have to unpack them a week early this year. Because once the pollen comes in, they start making babies. That's the protein part. So we're definitely going to be ahead of schedule, which does not bode well for mites. However, it was a good winter. So fingers crossed, survivability was good. The girls went into the winter strong, which is what you really need. but we'll just have to see. I think there's a lot of viruses going around. There's like last winter, we were really wiped out. So I think we're just going to have to wait and see. That's farming, right?
Yeah. Well, and some people don't think about, they don't they don't totally think about the bee business all the time. So I think everyone's kind of learning as you're talking about this. What kind of mortality can you expect through the winter like that?
So this will be my 6th year beekeeping, and I did not have any winter kill the first 3 years, which is actually kind of normal for beekeepers as they're starting because we just keep expanding our hives. But last winter, we lost 20 of our 25. My mentor, who thankfully is starting to retire, he lost 52 of his 54. And I had some commercial beekeepers locally wiped out.
Oh, wow.
We're pretty confident a virus has moved in. But fingers crossed, it was of my 20 that died, I know at least 5 of them was my own management. I was just spread too thin. I had too many hives for all the other jobs I'm doing, and they just didn't go in very strong. The 10 of them, though, there's definitely other stresses going on. And just even having the late frost the year before, the wasps were bad. The early spring, the varroa mites were bad. And to be fair, varroa mite treatments, it's kind of like treating cancer with chemotherapy. We're putting insecticides on insects, right? And hoping they don't die. All of this is just not ideal. Our honeybees in North America are not designed to handle the varroa mites the way the Asian bees that are much larger can handle them. So the management really needs to come up the curve and just even having tools available to us. There's some new products on the market. I'm not big on essential oils, but there's some thyme, the herb thyme-based ones that seem like they're fairly gentle for the bees, but actually still effective. So we'll see how it goes.
Fascinating. Hey, this week's question is, now you're in Renfrew. There's some crops you can't grow there. You mentioned the short growing season earlier. What's the one crop you wish you could grow in your area if you could?
Geez, that's a good question because I like to grow everything. I really do. Even when people say I can't, I try it, right? I'm one of 3 customers in Ontario that grows winter and spring canola. What's one? You know what? It would be something that's a high management crop. I'd love to be able to do an orchard or something, but I just am spread too thin to come up that learning curve.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Probably that would be it. Orchard. Peaches would be amazing. We have neighbors that do peaches, but they're in a greenhouse and they're organic. And they have to charge $1 million for them just to break even.
Yeah, isn't that the way it goes? Hey, Jen, thanks so much for joining us here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Shaun. Take care.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more here in the Farmer Rapid Fire right after this.
How's your farm's financial performance? Know where you stand and take your operation to the next level with FCC Benchmarker. Compare your farm performance against similar-sized operations in your area with FCC Benchmarker, a new tool from Farm Credit Canada. It helps identify your strengths and areas for improvement and empowers you to make strategic business decisions. Ready to start? Contact your local Farm Credit Canada office for details.
As you head out into the field this season, the Corn School's got you covered. Everything from tillage discussions, weed control info, field trial results, yield strategies, and more. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com has the information and advice you need to help you succeed. Brought to you by Pride Seeds and BASF. Corn School episodes are available at cornschool.com, from RealAgriculture.com, or as a podcast from your favorite streaming service. Download the latest episode today.
If you're thinking about growing oats in 2023, how about trying CDC Endure from Alliance Seed? CDC Endure Oats is consistently one of the top yielding varieties in the Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta provincial yield trials. With strong standability, excellent disease resistance, and excellent end-use quality, CDC Endure might be the variety for you and your farm. Available from authorized Alliance Seed retailers, Parrish and Heimbecker, Patterson Grain, and Northwest Terminal. For more information, visit allianceseed.com.
This segment of the RealAg Radio Farmer Rapid Fire is brought to you by Granubor from US Borax. Ask for it by name. Make sure you go to borax.com Joining us right now for the Farmer Rapid Fire, it is Michael Groot. He is in Huron County in Ontario. Hey, Michael, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Shaun. Glad to be back.
Yeah. Okay. How is spring planning coming along?
Well, just trying to ram through the finishing touches on everything right now, as I'm sure a lot of people are. All the seeds not quite here yet, but I'm sure all the seed suppliers and everybody's kind of getting their phones are ringing off the hooks, I'm sure. Hay, I'm hoping to get some hay planted here with some oats in the next day or two, because we're hitting a heck of a nice stretch of weather here, and it doesn't look great, but for something like hay or oats or something like that, it's pretty much a golden opportunity here, I think.
Yeah, for that hay, is that all for livestock feed, or what do you do with it?
Yeah, no, we've got sheep and beef cattle there, so they, especially the beef cattle, they just seem to be a bottomless pit for hay, so always need some of that stuff around.
Yeah, you're getting a great stretch of weather here this week in Ontario.
Oh, yeah, it's 25 degrees out right now, the sun is shining, and it almost feels like maybe some patio drink weather rather than trying to screw around out here in the shed and in the barn all day.
I hear you. It's funny. That's the very first thing I think of too. Oh, sun's out. It's warm. Is there a patio open? I'm right there with you. Right there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So as you look at kind of the conditions and the weather, what are you sort of marking on the calendar as a potential start date with planting? Have you got kind of a week in mind at this point?
Well, I would say with this weather we're getting right now, with the heat that's being applied to everything, now sure, this next week coming up, they're talking a chance of wet snow, I think, again for one day, but it's like a 7 degrees and then a 2 degree evening or something. But I don't know. After that, if we can get back into those daily temperatures of 12 to 15, right? And that doesn't take long to get things back to the way they were right here. I would say before the start of May, we should be able to get going at it. If I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't been talking to a lot of guys lately, but I wouldn't be surprised if right in my area here there'd be some possibly some corn or soybeans going in within the next couple of days here, though.
Oh, really?
I would say so. Especially on the lighter ground. It's happened many times in the past. This early in April.
Yeah.
But I don't think with the varieties these days, and I don't think if I had my ducks in a row, I would maybe try some too on some lighter ground. But as soon as we can, I guess, right? As soon as the weather looks good, we'll get at her, because things can change quickly, and once you can go, you may as well go, kind of thing.
Yeah, that soil's fit. It's time to let her rip, right? Get going. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
How are you thinking about these markets at all? That's been kind of a dog's breakfast, so to speak, kind of. Have you got kind of your 23 crop marketing plan sort of figured out a little bit?
Yeah, I try not to look too much right now until I hear something going bad in the industry. Then I might go look and see, hopefully for a jump. But yeah, it's one of those years, right, where for people holding corn or whatever, one of those years that selling everything at harvest was the better option, I guess, and they do happen. But as far as 2023, I don't know. It depends a lot on what's going on over in Russia too, right? I don't know if you guys have been covering much, but with the Ukraine grain trading stuff, if Russia kind of messes with that, is that going to make the markets jump again? What's going on in South America, right? I don't know. It's a weird thing. Maybe it should be just one of those things where you just book a certain amount every month, don't even really look, and carry on. And a lot of the time, I think you're just as far ahead as doing that, maybe. But rather than stressing every day about taking a look at the markets every day, that can be pretty darn stressful too. But
yeah. Well, there's a whole bunch of ways to risk manage, right? And
exactly,
I think what constantly comes up in my mind is how it's really difficult, because there's certain things that are in your control, and then there's a whole abundance of things that are out of your control, and you just kind of got to focus on the things that you can manage, right? Otherwise, it just becomes just overburdening, and just it's a huge weight on your shoulders trying to steer through all of it. Any changes this year to the crop rotation at all?
No, we're stuck pretty good with our regular corn, soybeans, wheat, and some hay. Might try to throw in, like, if the oats, if planting does go good this week, I might change a little bit up, maybe throw nothing major, just a few acres more of oats in the ground maybe. There's usually demand for that kind of stuff down the road, especially with the cover crop markets kind of always hot these days. So there's usually people looking. It's just nice to mix things up a little bit. But we're pretty plain, just stick to our standard rotation for the most part. I did grow buckwheat there a few years ago, and that was back when buckwheat really jumped in price too. So that was one of my more profitable crops at the time. But it's always options, especially this early. Like, things can change in an instant too.
Yeah.
So we're open to change, but as of right now, we're keeping it pretty well the same.
You feeling pretty optimistic about the year ahead? How you thinking about it?
I think so. A little bit of hesitancy, but overall, like, everything's just so crazy, right? Like, equipment's crazy, and you can't predict the markets at all. And I just don't know where we're heading, but I think overall the prices, just with current world events, it's hard to say, but optimistic. I'll keep optimistic as much as I can. But yeah, I'm just a little leery about it, is all. But I'll keep my optimism high, I think.
Yeah. Until further notice.
Exactly. Yeah. It's hard, right? Like, next week, all of a sudden, you never know. The farming game is quite a thing.
Yeah, well, very much so. Think about on the corn specifically, right? Like, USDA talking about 92 million acres of corn. We've got some weather issues in certain parts. We had Chip Flory from AgriTalk on the RealAg Radio show here earlier this week, and he talked about how the first 85 will get planted. We know that. It's what happens after that is a little bit more up in the air and in question. And of course, that the further that spring goes on, and that let's just say, let's use the 85 as a number out of the air. The further that 7 million acres is in question, the later that goes into the spring, the better that is for the markets. And so there's that timing thing that you were talking about in terms, if whether it's reality or not on whether it gets planted, if there's a bit of an upshot in the market because of it, then that might be an opportunity to take some risk off the table, right? Those are and that's hard to do when you're also trying to get the crop in. That's like where the multitasking comes in that makes this a real challenging business for sure.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's never-ending challenges, that's for sure. Like when you were talking earlier about the things you can control and the things you can't, I feel like in the farming industry that list of things you can control is pretty darn small compared to the list of things you can't control, that's for sure. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Hey, question of the week. Now, in your geography, on your farm, there's crops you can grow, there's crops you maybe can grow, and there's crops you would probably never try. What's a crop that you wish you could grow on your farm if you could?
That's a good question. I wish I could justify more grass, actually. We're working on it. Personally, with our livestock and the way we operate, I would actually just prefer to be rotational grazing cattle all the time if I could, and sheep. But we also have bills to pay too. And right now, as we're working towards building our direct consumer meat market, hopefully someday we'll get there, but that's not maybe a very good answer, the one you're looking for. But I just think adding more grass into the whole system is what I'd like to do right now, whether or not we can pencil it out, right? But
I like it.
Yeah.
No, That's good. I like it. I like it a lot. That's good. This is the purpose of this question. Is that I don't want everybody to give the same answer. So that so far that's two. We got two answers, and they're both unique from each other. Very unique from each other. So we'll continue. Excellent. We'll ask some of the farmers, the two more we have in Western Canada, what they wish they could grow on their farm too. So hey, really appreciate you joining us, Michael. All the best to you during planting season, and we'll talk to you a bit later on in the growing season. Okay.
Thanks, Shaun. It was good talking to you again.
When we come back on RealAg Radio, we're going to hop over the Canadian Shield. We're going out west, and we're going to find out how our two farmers are making out as they prepare for spring. You're listening to RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM.
MNP's farm management consulting team is proud to help farmers and livestock producers remain competitive and profitable. Our team is made up of professional agrologists and consultants who come from extensive agriculture backgrounds themselves and offer a high level of technical expertise, first-hand knowledge, and close relationships within the agriculture industry. Whether you're looking for help with your day-to-day challenges or require specific advice, our customizable service offering means you can call on us for whatever advice you need. Visit us at mnp.ca to learn more.
Whether you're seeding, harvesting, or anything in between, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has you covered. Timely agronomic information from industry experts available online anytime. Give your wheat crop a good start and a great finish with the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com. Brought to you by C&M Seeds, Syngenta Canada, and the Alberta Wheat and Barley Commission.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio and the Farmer Rapid Fire. This segment is brought to you by Granny Bohr from US Borax. Ask for it by name. Go to borax.com. And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire into Plumas, Manitoba, and we are talking to Randy Court of Court Seeds. Randy, how are you doing?
Great, Shaun. How about yourself?
Pretty good. You all ready for spring?
Oh, we're pretty close, yeah. Just a little way to go yet around here, though.
Yeah.
Things, their fields are still mostly over 50% white yet, so it'll be a few days yet. So
melting fast, though, no?
Yes, but it's that time of year. Let's face it, the sun is very strong, and the melting starts about -5, and it keeps on going from there. So
yeah, a lot of concern about flooding in some parts of Manitoba too, right?
There is concern. I don't think it'll be as bad as perhaps forecasted, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, the experts tell me that the Red River has a lot of water coming from the south.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been definitely some snow along that region for sure. Now, I asked you how ready you were for spring, and it sounds like things are all lining up. What's any big changes this year for the crop rotation?
Perhaps a few more soybeans. We do a percentage of our fields in soybeans every year, and I think maybe the acres might be increasing a bit this year. Other than that, it's remaining acres are kind of divided equally between cereals and canola. And we do, as you know, we're in the pedigree seed business, so we do several varieties of wheat and several varieties of barley. Probably the big change, though, would be oats. Oats is kind of a non-starter this year. Everybody is pretty disappointed with the current prices, and supplies in Canada are very large after last year's crop.
Yeah, definitely been hearing a lot of that through the winter for sure. The oat, I'm not sure how low the oat acreage will go. There will be some contrarians, I'm sure, out there, but as you indicated, definitely not showing up in your seed sales. What do you think about spring wheat? Have you had a lot of demand, people calling for spring wheat? Because that's one that some people, we heard this week on the show about, there's some struggles with some of the U.S. winter wheat crops. So maybe sort of a bit of a buoy potentially for spring wheat demand. You've been selling lots of spring wheat seed?
Actually, spring wheat was a fairly slow seller for us this year. Quite a bit slower than it has been for the past decade, I would say. But suddenly we're getting a lot more interest. I think people had some undecided acres, and it looks like perhaps the spring wheat acres will come up to a somewhat more normal level with Manitoba. I don't think we'll see a big increases in spring wheat, but I think we'll certainly maintain a decent acreage.
Yeah, and what's for your commercial operation, the soybeans? Is it just the fact that we've actually proved again after last year that we can get a pretty good yield out of those Manitoba soybeans, or what's raised that acreage for you?
For us, it's just a change in weather pattern. We've come through a series of droughts, and after last year, the drought rapidly ended, and we got good moisture reserves in the fields right now. So we're thinking that we should be keeping our acres, putting our acres back into more of a traditional rotation here with the soybeans. So.
Do you treat seed there too at the operation?
Yes, we do. We treat a lot of seed.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if does most of it go out treated now, or is there still some bare seed and people treat it themselves or don't treat it at all? Have those numbers changed? Those percentages changed over time in the last 10 years?
Probably not largely. There's still a little bit of everything. There's people who don't believe in seed treatments for whatever reason, whether it's cost and economics or some other reason. There's those that are right at the other end of the spectrum that will not plant without seed treatment. So there's definitely a range of people out there, and that range will shift a bit with weather patterns. Very dry springs, we find people tend to treat less. Wet, cold springs, and that type of thing, we tend to get a little more seed treatments.
Are you having to offer more? There's more options. So is it become more of a a la carte sort of it used to be just do you want Vitavac single or dual?
Yes. Your question is very relevant because yes, it's definitely more of an a la carte system. There's a lot of people that use seed treatments can also be anything from micronutrients to various biologicals. So there's a lot of different products out there being used in a lot of different combinations. Not necessarily the traditional chemistries that were originally used 10 years ago.
Yeah. So how do you steer through all of the noise of, say, some of those seed-added biologicals? How are you figuring out what you want to offer your customers?
I guess the first reaction you have is it's all snake oil. And we go from there. We start filtering it down. We start looking for data, actual side-by-side trials. We want to see some scientific backing to anything we would recommend. We won't base it off of people's judgments and opinions. We want to see actual side-by-side replicated trials in the region, preferably showing us where we're going.
Very, very cool. Okay, so any new additions to the machinery fleet here for 23? You're running the same gear?
No, definitely. There's always changes. Back to the seed treatment, we just added in another high-capacity treater. We're now looking at treating in that 45 to 50 bushels per hour or per minute range on wheat. So that's a big change. It uses a weigh belt system to calculate the amount of product going down there and nebulizers and atomizers to get the distribution. So that's a change for us. We've also added to our tractor fleet. So we're getting ready.
Yeah. Now, patience though, right? And patience showed to pay off last year in Manitoba. Remember how wet it was? Well, I know you haven't forgot, but it was so wet in Manitoba, late spring, everybody was freaking out. Mother Nature cooperated in the back end, and look at the yields that we got. So patience is a virtue.
It is something that I'm still struggling to control. You spend your whole life doing this as fast and as hard as you can, and patience is definitely always a challenge. But that's the reality of farming. The person that can make the most calculated decisions in the heat of the moment is the one that's going to win.
It's hard. It's hard in the moment, though, isn't it?
Oh yes. There's a lot of unforeseen stress that you just can't anticipate. But we know the work has to be done, and we know the work has to be done on time. So that's our motivation.
Yeah. Is the younger generation on the farm there better at that than you, or do you feel that you're better than them at it?
Actually, I think genetics play a big part of the role, and this probably doesn't change a lot when the apple falls from the tree.
Although they may think it does, it really does. That's funny. I know. I get that too. Or my wife will say and I do it to her too, or I'll say, geez, you remind me of your mom there a little bit. And she'll do it to me where it's like, hey, is that you, Dick? Is that Dick Haney right there? We all have fun with that inside of our family relationships for sure.
Yes,
hey,
definitely.
Randy, I got a question for you. And this week's question is all about what you don't have on the farm. And for your farm, what crop do you wish you could grow on the farm that you can't?
Boy, this is another Shaun Stumper, I think. We wish we could grow. I suppose we wish we could grow corn. And the reason we don't grow corn is because our cereal acres are tied up so heavily in pedigree seed production. And we wouldn't want to take away from our seed production side.
Makes sense. Well, also with corn too, you get that, like all those bushels rolling into that combine at one time, that sound. Who doesn't want to run a combine through 300 bushel corn?
Yes, that's right. It's very,
right?
It's very sexy.
Yeah. Last year you wish you probably could have planted rice for some people in Manitoba. There was that.
Yes, but eventually it dried up the last year.
I know.
So I'm not sure if that would be the right crop or not either. It was more the challenge of getting it in and making it survive the initial rains until July, and then we went into a dry period anyway. So it's those options aren't really a reality.
Very
but
cool.
It's amazing how Mother Nature rewarded us last year for what we did. We were quite happy with it. So.
Yeah, as you should be. Hey, Randy, all the best to you this spring planting season, and we'll check in with you a little bit later on in the growing season, my friend.
Well, hopefully we're all in the field in a few weeks here. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll be right back on RealAg Radio right after this.
Warehouse, what can we do for you?
Yeah, I'm looking for some nitrogen.
All right, we're running low and it's awful pricey, but let me check. Hold.
The answer to low supply and high prices for nitrogen is Envita, a microbe with systemic nitrogen fixation. Envita works throughout the foliage and roots, providing a right place, right time source of nitrogen to maximize yield in corn, wheat, and soybeans.
Yeah, we're all out, but...
You know what? I'll take some of that Envita.
That's what I was going to recommend.
Book your Envita while supplies last.
Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio for the Farmer Rapid Fire. This segment's brought to you by Wolftrax DDP micronutrients designed to boost crop performance while maximizing fertilizer investments. Learn more about Wolftrax and other nutrient management, nutrient protection, and seed enhancement solutions at kochagronomicservices.ca. And joining us right now to finish up the Farmer Rapid Fire here this week, coming out of Rosetown, Saskatchewan, it is Jim Wickett. Jim, welcome back.
Hey, good to be back.
So you had yourself a great winter?
Yeah, there was nothing wrong with it. It's pretty quiet, but, it was, seemed like a long winter, but no problems.
Yep. Snow starting to melt there?
Yep, we're probably down to the last maybe 30% of the melt in the fields on that. So it's melting nice and slow, sinking in. Talked to a couple cattle guys today, and they were quite surprised. They had some water run and filled some dugouts, so they're happy. So anyway, things are good.
Yeah. So overall, what's your moisture profile heading into spring here? Are you in the happy category, or slightly like we're going to need some more rather quickly?
Oh, we're going to need more really quick. Yeah. And actually there's rain forecast for Friday. So fingers crossed on that. We kind of been in an abusive relationship with the weatherman for the last couple of years in west side of Saskatchewan. And so cautiously optimistic, I'd say. But, it's dry. This moisture is all soaking in. There's very little running.
Yeah. It's receiving it quite well. It's rather thirsty, the land, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
You all ready for spring?
Oh, I wouldn't say I'm ready, but pretty close. I'm still waiting. It's haven't hooked onto anything yet. It's still out in the field, so probably looking. I don't know, guys. Be 3 weeks, I'm sure, before guys get really serious about heading out into the field, and maybe a little bit of pre-work stuff, chemical application or fertilizer before that. But it is what it is, and it's like this most years, and I'm just patiently waiting.
Yeah. Any changes this year to what you're going to be putting in the ground?
Not really. Maybe a few more mustard acres, but that's about the only increase that I have, really. A few less lentils.
A few less. Okay, I was going to ask you about pulses. What are you doing with pulses?
My crop rotation is all set up that a lot of my land would be on 2016 land, and that was just a complete disaster, and I'm just not comfortable yet. We have such a phenomyces rot problem here that even last year I had some land on some lentils on 2015 lentil land, and we were only moderately damp for about 18 hours, and I had some wheel tracks die and that kind of thing. So a little concerned about that.
Yeah, over the short and long term, right? This is this phenomyces problem. I've traveled across Saskatchewan through the winter. This comes up at all the meetings. I was down in Montana and North Dakota. They're talking about a phenomyces. This is a real threat to the pulse acre.
Yeah, I mean, pulses have basically been a cash crop in this neck of the woods for 35 years. They've been the dominant crop, and I guess maybe we pushed rotations, but at the time it seemed like the thing to do. And so I do think that maybe the plant breeders dropped the ball. I mean, I know this was showing up 2008, 2009. Was kind of really dismissed, and now it's a full blown big problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, earlier this week, it was yesterday's show, we had on Kelvin Hepner and Tyler McCann, Tyler with Cappy. Yep. And we're talking about our new episode of the Ag Policy Connection podcast. And this week, and I know you're a policy wonk, Jim. I know this about you. You've been very active in policy circles. This week, they're talking. The whole episode is about getting rid of the single desk with the Canadian Wheat Board. What's your thoughts on that, Jim?
Well, that was one of the highlights of my farming career. So, I think that was a fantastic thing. It put, some emphasis back onto the farmer for sure and marketing his grain. But we're sure, literally since then, we've seen record prices. We've seen guys be able to lock a figure in for forward contracting some prices. And with that, they have some security. So you're seeing increased input going in or more expensive inputs. And with that, we've had, I don't know the stats right off the top, but I mean, the amount of massive crops that we've grown exponentially has grown to the point where, we've had 3 or 4 years where we've absolutely pushed our transportation sector to the max, getting the big crop out. So I think it's fantastic.
Do you, I sort of put one on a T there for you because I knew exactly what you were going to say, but I did that on purpose. It is interesting though to reflect, because I don't know in Western Canada if we have another topic like that. That's kind of one of a kind, right? Like, I don't know if we have another one. Yeah,
that's a generational thing. I mean, there was literally 3 generations of farmers that never been able to sell their own grain. We had farmers put in jail for selling, a pail of wheat, crossing the border with a pail of wheat and spending time in jail. So, I mean, it's a significant thing. I don't think the average public really grasped the concept of how draconian that was.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I encourage you, Jim, and everybody else to check out this week's episode of the Ag Policy Connection podcast hosted by Kelvin Hepler. He does a great job, and going to cover that one from all angles. Hey, Jim, this week's question, okay? Now, there are certain things you can grow in Rosetown, and there's certain things you can't grow in Rosetown. What's the one crop you wish you could grow in your area that you can't?
Soybeans.
Okay, why?
We don't get enough moisture. I tried them for 6 years. We need moisture in August and for soybeans, and that's the worst time of year you can get them for pulses. And we're just, I think, a hair too dry.
Yeah. So
I did have them in 2016, and some of them drowned out. But where I didn't, I mean, they went 50 bushels to the acre. But for 3 years previous, they were single digits.
Yeah. I'm curious, why do you wish you could grow them?
Well, first of all, Roundup Ready crop. So that helps us with some of the weed control options. And, in my experience, they're pretty easy crop to grow if you can get them. In this area, very few funguses and issues like that. So they were kind of a plant it and forget it type of crop. You sprayed it and you were done. And then they long season, so you didn't have to worry about them. They were going to be there. They'll be ready when everything else is done, and they just stand there and wait for you.
I like it. I like the way you put that. I remember being at a Sask Pulse regional meeting I think it was in Swift Current. And it actually might have been in Rosetown, to be honest with you, where huge crowd, everybody was talking about soybeans. Like it was like, they were going to take a lot of acres and a lot of hype. And I remember at that time, there were some agronomists saying like, this needs to slow down a little bit. Like, we're getting a little overhyped. Not to say it's not going to, I think eventually time will, work its favor here, and we will see more soybean acres in a place like Saskatchewan for sure. It's just going to take more time than maybe people thought.
Oh, I totally agree with that. They were totally oversold by both retailers and the seed distributors for this area. There should have been a little bit more of a little cautionary tale told with them, but I think some guys got excited about being able to sell another seed because they weren't cheap to grow, and they still aren't. And so, I think that got pushed a little bit. I do, and then guys got a pretty good bonk on the nose with a single digit or 10, 12 bushel crop. Was not easy to market because a lot of guys didn't have enough for a truckload to even go anywhere. So they kind of became a problem. And like anything, if something's a big problem and there's too many headaches, then it gets dropped. And there was lots of one and done soybean guys.
Jim, all the best to you during the growing season here and planting, getting that crop in the ground. We'll talk to you in a few months, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Very interesting. We got a different answer on which crop would you like to grow from each of the four growers. Very, very cool. If you have a crop that you wish you could grow on your farm, let me know. We'd love to hear from you. This was a lot of fun here today. Email is shaney@realagriculture.com. Of course, across all the different social media platforms as well. Or you could call that Real Ag feedback line, 855-776-6147. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with Real Ag Radio. And we'll, of course, chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you for downloading this episode of RealAg Radio, brought to you by high-performing new carbine insecticide from FMC. New carbine insecticide hits aphids hard with effective, selective, and extended control. It also has activity on ligus and tarnished plant bugs. Ask your retailer today.